Okay, it's 10 o'clock, so we're going to get started. My name's Joe Waderick. I'm the sales manager for Dagostino Electronic Services. We have a cast and crew here with us today, and we're excited to talk about this initiative and want to try to educate everyone the best we can to make sure you're taking advantage of everything that's out there. As we get around to everyone, they'll introduce themselves. I'll hold back on introductions and let each person introduce themselves as they get to the part of the webinar. There is a question portion that you can all see on the right-hand side of your screen. If you have questions throughout the webinar, please just type them in there, and we can unmute everybody at that time, and can have those conversations. We really want this to be interactive, so feel free to ask questions and to be part of this as well. One thing you're going to see on the side here, there's a poll that's going to pop up on your page. We just ask you as we get underway if you could just fill that out, and it'll send back to us. I'm going to turn things over to Heather, and she's done a really great job of digging in on this and getting the best information to make sure that we're as consultative as possible to all of our partners. So without further ado, I'll give it to Heather.
Okay, hi everyone. Thanks for joining us. My name is Heather Pellet. I am marketing and social media here at Dagostino. It looks like you all are responding to the poll, which is great. It looks like a little bit more than half of you have never applied for a grant, so that's good. Hopefully you'll learn something today. Some of you have and were awarded funded, so that's great too. I'm going to go ahead and close this poll so I can continue with the presentation, but that's helpful for us just to kind of get an idea of who is in our audience. Go ahead and go forward. All right, so funding is available each year through targeted grants from the Pennsylvania Office for Safe Schools. Schools can apply for funding. Can you all see my screen? Oh, wait, I don't know that you guys can see my screen. Give me 1 second. There we go. Sorry about that. All right, so you should see my screen now that says overview at the top. If you don't, please go ahead and chat in the comments box. Okay, so each year funding is available through targeted grants from the Pennsylvania Office for Safe Schools. Schools can apply for funding for 4 different grants. One is the security-related technology and equipment grant, a grant to pay for programs that address school violence, and then a grant to put school police officers and school resources in schools. Municipalities and police departments can apply for funding to put SROs in schools. So what schools are eligible? Public school districts, charter schools, cyber charter schools, and VOTEC schools. Private schools are not eligible. That was a previous miscommunication that they cannot apply for the funding. The difference between a school police officer and a school resource officer is pretty simple. School districts hire an outside school police officer from an outside approved vendor, and the State Department of Education actually has a list of approved vendors on their website, so you can reference that. A school resource officer is hired by the police department or municipality for a specific school district. So that said, the grant is then awarded to the police department or municipality, and that is where the funding goes to pay for that SRO. So here's a breakdown of the grants this year. The equipment grant, like I mentioned, so schools can apply for up to $25,000 for security-related technology and equipment. The program grant is up to $20,000 for various programs that address school violence. Now, this is up to, so schools can apply for that much, and then they're awarded, they might be awarded $22,000 or $19,000, depending on, what their application looks like. Schools can also apply, like I mentioned, for the school police officer grant. That money is up to $40,000. And then the municipalities, the police departments, and the schools can apply for a school resource officer grant up to $60,000. And I'll touch on this a little bit later, but schools can apply for all 4 grants every year, and then a municipality and a police department can also apply for a resource officer grant if a school is applying for a resource officer grant. Okay, so we are in the submission period. It is going on now. It continues through the end of next month. You have to apply by 11:59 p.m. on July 31st. They will not accept late applications. The grant money is awarded every September, and then you must use that money that you are awarded by the following June. So these dates are for this year, but they vary slightly, but this is a general idea of what it looks like each year. For schools, you have to be registered with the online portal at egrants.pa.gov. If you are not registered, I have some contact information at the end of the webinar to contact at the U.S. or at the state Office for Safe Schools, and they've been great in helping me prepare for this webinar and very responsive, so I will give you their contact information, and you can reach out to them to get a login, a username and a login. If you are a police department or a municipality, you actually go on to, and I'm just mentioning this, there's none of those on the call, but I'm just mentioning for your knowledge, you go on to the state's website and you can download a PDF, fill it out, and then mail it to this address. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Mark Gillenberger, and he is our security manager here at DES. He has lots of experience writing proposals for these grants. We're going to primarily focus on the equipment grant because that is obviously what our specialty is. But with that, I'll send it to Mark.
Thank you, Heather. So surveillance equipment that would fall within the equipment grants are obviously going to be security cameras, NVRs, and we'll talk a little bit about software here in a second. And included in that portion of that equipment would also be the installation. There was some back and forth as to whether or not installation was part of what you could apply for. And I can tell you that on previous grants that we've worked with other schools on and that they have received funding, that we have also included the installation along with that equipment. In previous years, there was a cap on what we could, what a camera could cost or apply for on the grant. That has been removed, so we no longer have to worry about that. For the most part, most of your cameras would have fallen underneath that, but there are some special cameras, PTZs, and some of the multi-head cameras that we use, which may have gone over that, but we no longer have to worry about that. Electric lock sets, card readers, deadbolts, any of those things to secure your physical facility are all going to be things that you can apply for in this grant. As far as the student staff, electronic visitor management, that would be something similar to the HID Easy Lobby. That would be part of what you could apply for to do the background check when your visitors come to the school. Emergency communications may be something that you're interested in if you're doing some type of a mass notification system. And we'll talk a little bit about signage. That comes up in this later, but not to confuse physical signage with digital signage. So there may be some misunderstanding there. Protective lighting, we do not get involved with that ourselves, but you know, that's probably something that your facility guys more than most likely would be doing on their own. I don't think you would be necessarily applying for grant money for protective lighting, and metal detectors are not as common in schools. We don't see a lot of metal detectors, but maybe a wand or something like that. If you really wanted to pursue that, that could be something you could apply for. That's one. So equipment that would be not eligible would be architects, engineering firms, fees. Actually, that would be something that we typically do for you, and we do not charge for that. I'll come to your site, we'll do a survey, discuss your specific needs at your school. So that really wouldn't apply here. First aid, CPR, I mean, we could just go down the list, GPS. Bollards are going to be those physical, and you'll see the things that they're excluding are more or less the physical things that would kind of fall in other buckets. So bollards are those big metal poles that you might put in front of an entrance or a door, maybe something going into your athletic facility where the trucks may go through. Building improvements, windows. Now signage is listed here. This is one of the things I touched on earlier. When they say signage here, you know, they're literally referring to, you know, this way to the cafeteria, things like that. They're not referring to digital signage or electronic signage that would fall under the emergency notification or mass notification system. So we don't want to confuse that. Then again, computers, laptops, those things are more or less going to fall in your E-rate funding, which is not part of this. Maintenance, fees. And then this is one thing I wanted to go over. When they talk about licensing fees for phones and software, now they say software here, and to be clear, when we do software for video management, we're really going to bundle that software as part of the hardware. So that software would be bundled in the hardware as part of those devices. So we would not show a separate line item for software. The main reason is we don't want that to be confusing, or we don't want anyone to be judged or denied a point or get points taken off if we're showing software. So if we do software for video management or access control, that's really going to be embedded in the appliance that you're going to buy. Weapons, tasers, ammunition, vehicles. I mean, some of these things are pretty obvious as to why you wouldn't want to apply for them. And then for some reason, cameras on buses are not part of what you can apply for. I'm not sure what the reasoning is there, but if you are looking to apply for a grant to put NVRs and cameras in your buses, that's something that you cannot apply for as part of this funding.
Okay, so next we're kind of going to look at what the application process looks like. Again, we're focusing on the equipment grants, but these forms or these fields I received from the state. This is what it will look like when you log into the portal to submit your application. So the first page is pretty self-explanatory. You just need some contact information for your superintendent, your grant contact, and then a business manager. Next, you have to list the goals and objectives. So there's 4 fields. I would say a good number would be 3 to 4 based on some customers that we have talked to of listing. Some examples that you could list include, expanding and improving your security system, adding additional cameras, maybe the system you can give remote access to local law enforcement or district employees, or upgrading the cameras to higher resolution, wider angle, that sort of thing. Question two, you have to just provide a description of the equipment to be purchased, and that is something that Mark or a DES sales manager can help with, our account representative, to kind of go through and put a description about what you are going to be purchasing. Number 3, provide information on how the equipment will maintain, improve, or enhance the safety and our climate of the school. Again, enhance monitoring of areas that are currently unsupervised, or, increase visibility to possibly improve disciplinary issues. Sometimes the presence of a camera is all a student needs to behave. Again, video footage that might be getting sent to local law enforcement can kind of help with an investigation if an issue would arise. Number 4, provide information on the activities to be conducted based on the stated goals and objectives. Something like install cameras in an area where there currently are none. Number 5, support the need for funds. Why do you need this grant money? It lists some examples of reports that you might be able to cite, such as, your school climate survey, disciplinary records, Pennsylvania Youth Survey. You can see them all listed there. And what I actually did, this is a good time to mention that, was I took all these questions and I created a Word document, and I'll share that with you all through email after the webinar. It's also listed under handouts on your webinar view. You should be able to download it from there. But basically what it is it's just a Word doc that details all these questions, and you can kind of go through and fill it out in the document and then copy it and paste it into the portal. One of our customers actually does that, and they upload it to Google or some sort of shared document service where they all can kind of collaborate on the document together. So, your technology director, your superintendent, they can all go in there, and then once it's complete, whoever is going to be the designated person to apply copies and pastes into the portal. So I kind of like that idea. So that'll be available to you after this. 6 and 7 are pretty self-explanatory, and this will be something obviously that you, the school district or the technology manager or director, would fill out. The projected outcomes of the grant activity in measurable terms, including baseline information and expected improvement. So I reached out to the state for kind of some clarity on this question, maybe some examples. And basically, what they're looking for here is, if the grant is awarded, what are your projected outcomes and what does your district hope to achieve? Number 9, provide a brief description of how the equipment will be maintained by the school after the grant is completed. Again, some examples, maybe regular and ongoing training for key staff members, annual funds allocated to maintain and improve these systems, maybe a priority list of security cameras that are nearing end of life that will need to be updated. The state is really looking for anything to kind of show that you are going to not forget about the upgrades that you did and kind of keep them top of the line. The next couple of slides are just basically, they're looking for monetary values. So this is kind of an overview of the contracted services, the supplies, and then obviously the details. So this is, again, something that as we work with you to go through the process of creating a proposal, now that we have seen what the state is looking for, we are going to do our best to kind of mirror our proposal to this, to kind of make it easy for you to copy and paste, because this is all obviously a long application process, and we want to very much be a partner to you and help you, make the process as easy as possible. Again, this is the contracted services, and this is laid out with, the function, the object. You can read the description, the quantity, units, unit rate. So that is all listed for you here. And then again, similar, I think it's exactly the same table for the supplies.
And we will, again, we'll format any proposals to help dovetail them into this application to make it as easy as possible, to eliminate one other step of trying to weed through what we give you, so that you can, fill in these line items exactly the way that they would go into the form.
Okay, so how is funding determined? So of course, there's no guarantee of funding. They're competitive, and the grants are reviewed and scored based on criteria detailed on the state's website. Priorities are given to schools that, are designated as persistently dangerous, or they, have the greatest need, and then they do try to, whenever possible, spread out the grants across the state. Here's a fun little chart that kind of breaks it down even further, and again, this is on the state's website. So most heavily weighted is the proposal narrative, as you can see. Supporting data and expected outcome are also pretty high. So again, this is going to be obviously in the presentation, but it's on the state's website. The state's website actually does a really good job of laying all of this out, much better than any federal website I've seen for Safe Schools grants. It's very clear and easy to read. There's PDFs that kind of detail everything that you would need to know, and we're not going into super detail, but you can find all that information on the state's website. I kind of touched on this, but just kind of to recap, schools can apply every year. They can apply for more than one grant at a time. They can apply for all 4 grants every year if they want to. And then a police department and a municipality and a school can apply for the SRO grant the same year. And actually, I kind of feel like that would be a good thing, because then it's showing that, that school district or that school, the need is there for an SRO. And then quickly, I'll just mention our purchasing contracts, CoStar's, PEPM, and the PA Department of General Services, ITQ. And then this is the contact information that I mentioned throughout. So our website is listed. I basically just kind of created a mini version of the state's website. If you want to kind of get like a good overview, there's a lot of information that I touched on in here that is on our website, and that's just descom.com/safe-schools. Of course, you can contact your account manager. I'm sure all of you have one, or just the main number or email. And then this Russell Alves and Patricia Hollinger are great contacts at the state. That is an email address that goes to both of them, and I believe that number is Patricia's direct line. And again, there's their website, so you can kind of, go there and go through all the information that we went over in more depth. But with that, that's all that we have prepared. So we're going to open it up, and I can unmute some of you if you want to have more of like a discussion. So let's see. Does anybody have any questions for us? You can chat them.
I do. This is Adam Swinchock from the Peters Township School District, and it's more to Mark more than anything else. Hey, Mark, we set up pretty much a comprehensive plan for Dagostino. I think
Sorry about that.
No, we set up a kind of a long-range plan with our buildings here at Peters Township, and we've done 3 of those with you guys. We have some older drawings that cameras would need to be updated. How long would something like that, a turnaround for that, take? I'm just trying to think this through a little bit and trying to keep it within the $25,000 cap.
Obviously we get really busy coming up into summer because everyone's trying to do that big rush. So that's going to definitely play a part in that. I will, prioritize things based on that need, because I know there are hard deadlines on these things. But usually 1 to 2 weeks would be the longest that we could do something like that. I mean, we have to do I typically will do a physical walkthrough, which is going to take a day. Usually try to keep them down to 1 day. And then I'll lay those out, bring them back to the CAD department here if we need them in CAD at that point, or just mark them up. But I'd say, Adam, the longest we'd be looking at would be 1 to 2 weeks on something like that.
Okay, good. Now I know we've already done that with you guys. I just know that we did it about 2 years ago. So it may just need maybe a smaller refresh.
Okay.
All right. Thanks.
Sure.
Anybody else? There's a question. For Mark, we have a proposal for Easy Lobby from DES. Can you reformat that proposal as mentioned to fit the grant format as mentioned?
Sure.
Yes.
Yeah, we can do that to fit into the grant. And we'll have to break that out. Yes.
Yes. Anyone else?
You have 2 questions, or just 1? And also, through this process, if you have a question you think of after the fact, feel free to reach out.
Oh, here's one.
Heather is going to repost everything, and it looks like we have another question.
Let me see. Give me 1 second. Can't see it. Can a district purchase the items being requested now, and if approved, reimburse district funds?
It's a good question. I don't see why you couldn't purchase them now.
And then get reimbursed.
Sure.
Yeah, I mean, I would say that would be a question for probably Russ or Patricia, but I mean, if you would like us to reach out and try to get an answer for you, we're happy to do that. Chris Berkeley.
I think they have to submit the invoice. Our invoice has to be submitted to the Safe Schools folks. So if we're already paid, they still have our invoice for them.
Okay. Anything else? Okay.
All right.
Well, I hope you found this informative. At the end of at the conclusion of the webinar, a survey will pop up that just asks for some feedback for us. Yeah, this is the one. And we thank you for your time, and if you need anything, definitely reach out.
Thank you.
Thanks so much. Again, we'll be posting this as well in its entirety if you want to go back and revisit. I know that we went through some of the what you'd have to fill out to get the grant, and it is weighted by points, and that came kind of after we described that to you. So if you want to go back and revisit that, and again, we're happy to help you get through those portions of it to make sure that your narratives are as strong as they can be. So feel free, please use this as a resource. This is about building relationships and partnerships, and we want to make sure we keep everyone educated for all the new things that are coming down the pike. So we hope to do this more often on many different levels, and we appreciate everyone for joining us today.